Hi, my name is Rob Lee. I am the Chief Curriculum Director here at the SANS Institute, and I'm live from the ICS Summit here in Orlando, Florida, which we just finished wrapping up our keynote speaker, which was the Chief Energy Director from Ukraine that came especially over to give his keynote. It was incredible. And also a quick shout out to Robert M. Lee, who was promoted to faculty fellow yesterday, in addition to Tim Conway, who earned the Michael Asante Lifetime Achievement Award in ICS that we just awarded to him this morning. Both congratulations to those individuals. I am extremely excited to be here today. Just because we have, returning after about a month of doing this back in Orlando when I was at SANS 2023 at that event, and really excited to be here. A couple of notes on the two additional upcoming summits that are occurring in May of this year. We have the Small Business Summit, which is going to be in a couple weeks. If you have anyone that is worried about cybersecurity in the small business, we have an amazing repertoire of speakers that will be coming up and showing what you could do in the small business arena. And we also have the AI Cybersecurity Summit, which is at the end of May, the dark side of AI, what you need to know about AI in your community and also in your organization. And we're putting that agenda together as we speak. We just finished the call for presentations. Both of those events are chaired by myself and upcoming here in the next month. And so there's a lot of free content that is coming out there into the community. I'm going to be handing it over to Ashley, who's going to be doing News Bites right now to kick us off for the segment of Wait Just an Infosec.
Hello, and welcome to Wait Just an Infosec News Bites, where we bring you expert commentary on the most significant cybersecurity news from across the globe. I'm Ashley Barsha, here in the SANS studio. Let's dive into this week's cybersecurity news bites. 3CX, a business communications provider, is back in the news. Weeks after our first report about a North Korea-linked hacker group targeting 3CX with a supply chain attack, Symantec researchers found 4 additional compromised organizations. 2 of these organizations are responsible for critical energy sector infrastructure, which has researchers concerned about the potential for future cyber espionage. The other 2 compromised organizations are financial trading firms. Symantec researchers note the attack is likely financially motivated. However, they express major concern over the compromise of critical energy infrastructure. Researchers also warn that it's highly likely this hacking campaign has a much further reach than previously thought, almost certainly affecting victims that have not even yet been discovered. News Bites will continue to track this story, and we will bring you any new developments. And next up, threat actors are installing a 10-year-old WordPress plugin to inject malicious PHP code into web pages. Despite the plugin being a decade old, it is still available in the WordPress repository. Security company Sucuri reported that in March 2023, installations went from 40 to more than 100,000. The attackers were able to successfully log into WordPress in all cases. This attack technique is different from traditional PHP backdoors, as it allows the attackers to reinfect a compromised website by simply visiting a site page. Researchers suggest removing the plugin from your WordPress site, actively watching for its reintroduction, and reviewing admin accounts. Moving on to cloud news. Google fixed a security vulnerability in its cloud platform that enabled attackers to get extra sneaky with their tactics. The flaw allowed attackers to install unremovable malicious applications in Google accounts and hide them from view. Called Ghost Token, By research group Asterix Security, the malicious app provided attackers with a startling level of access to user data that was being stored in Google applications, including Gmail, Drive, Docs, Photos, Calendar, and several GCP services. With access to this data, attackers could create very realistic phishing attacks and, in a worst-case scenario, delete drive files, steal sensitive data, and write social engineering emails from the victim's account. Google's patch forces hidden GCP OAuth applications to appear in the apps with access to your account page so users can view them and delete them. Researchers suggest visiting your app management page to check for unauthorized third-party apps and reviewing the OAuth logs to check for signs of the vulnerability. And those are your SANS News Bites for this week. For more critical cybersecurity news and commentary from some of the sharpest minds in InfoSec, don't forget to subscribe to the SANS News Bites newsletter, your twice-weekly summary and analysis of the most significant cybersecurity developments at sans.org/newsbites. Thanks again. I'm your host, Ashley Barsha, hoping to see you again next time.
Are you a seasoned security leader working to build your security program and gain executive support? Or are you a new security manager growing and getting the most out of your team? Maybe you came from a deeply technical role or a non-security role altogether and are looking for tips, tricks, and best practices to solve your day-to-day security leadership and management challenges. If any of that sounds familiar, join us at the annual SANS Cybersecurity Leadership Summit on Thursday, May 25th to hear what's worked and what hasn't worked for industry leaders, CISOs, directors, managers, and leaders. Learn more and register for this free and online summit at www.sans.org/summits. Hope to see you there.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Rob Lee here, and it is my pleasure to introduce a really good friend of mine in this next segment. A lot of the times in the industry that, as we're, progressing along and getting our feet under us in cybersecurity, we have these individuals that are constantly intersecting with our lives. And one of these individuals that has consistently intersected with my life and a good friend and a peer and also a mentor over the years is Wendy Whitmore. Wendy and I first ran into each other when she was in the Air Force Office of Special Investigations stationed down in Los Angeles. And then we began working together at Mandiant, where she was one of the directors of consulting, when Mandiant was just getting started. She's progressed since that point, putting time in at both IBM and Palo Alto, in which she is one of the global leaders across the entire industry, representing Palo Alto in her field in cybersecurity, and also just being one of the seminal leaders in the industry today. I just saw her on the stage at RSA, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that as well. And truly excited to have Wendy Whitmore with us today. Wendy, thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join us today.
Hey, you're welcome, Rob. Excited to be here. Appreciate the invitation. It's just, I think when we jumped on, it was about 6:45 in the morning, my time. I'm in California today, so bright and early. So coffee is perfect for this discussion, I think.
No, I really appreciate that. And just give everyone a note, if you want to put comments in or questions or throw things in, I really like trying to make this as interactive as possible. When you're in there, if you go to the LinkedIn portion of it, you'll be able to immediately throw comments in that both Wendy and I would be able to see that. But one of the things I try to do with this interview is really try to get to the heart of how individuals got in their own inspiration into the field, because every one of us, especially, no one told us when we were growing up, hey, you should do cybersecurity. This is something, we're not 5 years old and saying, I want to be a cybersecurity engineer or technology leader. So, Wendy, basically, how did you get started? When you're talking about that, who was your biggest mentor, biggest influence that led you to where you're at today?
Great question, Rob. A couple of things. So, just for anyone who's not familiar with my background, I attended college and was in Air Force ROTC. and I was studying computer science. I ended up getting a degree in computer science as well as political science because I thought at some point I might want to be a lawyer in the future. Um, but that said, I had a dream that I was going to be a pilot, and I was intent on I'm going to be an Air Force pilot, and this is like, the absolute best job in the world. And I think that could be. But what I realized over time when I was in college is that it really wasn't my dream. Like I didn't want that enough. And so I kind of came into, the colonel's office with tears in my eyes and felt like I was really letting down a lot of people to tell them, hey, I don't think I actually really want to do this. I want to do something else. And he was very supportive, thankfully. And about a week later, we had a career day at our college, and it was for ROTC. So we had all these alums from different fields. Many of them came in flight suits. Some came in what we call BDUs or battle dress uniform, camouflage. And there was one woman who came in a black suit with high heels, and she was carrying a gun under her, concealed under her suit jacket. And I was like, what does she do? And, my professors are like, oh, it's this really small career field called Air Force OSI. They do felony level investigations. And I was like, well, do they have any technical people? Like, do they do anything related to computers? And at that time, a computer crime investigator was this really small field. Rob, certainly as well, because we're in the same field here within the Air Force. It was very small. A lot of people didn't know about it. There wasn't any education. They didn't have like a huge website at the time where we could go and study about it. But thankfully, I found out about that job. And I said, that's exactly what I want to do. That sounds like the perfect intersection of, my skill sets, which are technical at the time. And then also like being able to talk to people and do investigations and the physical aspects of the job. But then if we shift into when I actually was fortunate enough to get that job, I think this will resonate with this community here in particular. My biggest influence was a guy that we all know and love, Chad Tilbury. Chad was my first boss in the Air Force, and Chad and I developed a really special friendship. He certainly mentored me from a professional capacity, but I think he just taught me a lot about life and his outlook on life as well. And that's no doubt had a massive impact for every decision that I've made since then.
Oh, that's phenomenal. It's interesting. Last year at the DFIR Summit keynote, I actually was talking about how do you progress your career, kind of similar lines. And actually, I think it was the fifth point I had was actually you got to find your Chad. And I really want to make that into a T-shirt because of course is he's humble and everything like that, but it was also he had a great influence on me and the courses, and it sounds like you also found your Chad as well as a part of that. Chad's probably shaking his head right now if he's watching this or if he watches this later. So again, Chad's one of those individuals that he just has a way of connecting with people, and he's leading our classes here at the SANS Institute for 508, our incident response course, and 500, our Windows forensic analysis course, doing a fantastic job and probably doing it from Italy half the time. So your current position, I'm kind of curious, how do you explain, moving from, this deep technical computer crime investigator, which also was Kevin Mandia, by the way. A lot of people, there's so many people that kind of came up through the OSI CCI ranks, but what's your current position? What do you do? Are you technical still? How do you balance, management, technical leadership? What is your role? What do you do?
Yeah, great question. So I lead the Unit 42 team at Palo Alto Networks, and that's an intersection of our consulting team, which consists of incident response, as well as our proactive services. Also includes our threat intelligence analysts. That includes malware reverse engineers, as well as people who specialize maybe in like an industry threat group or SMEs in a particular area. And then also includes our MDR team, which are threat hunters throughout the world, looking primarily at our XDR inputs, hunting across client sites throughout the world. And then we're triaging all of that information together to determine, conduct analytics on it, and then determine decisions of who we maybe need to talk to about it, who we need to notify, what product detections that we need to build to make sure that our products constantly have the latest updates in them. So what does that mean? So I've got a team of over 300 people. We're throughout the world. I would say that I get exposed to technical work still. Like I'm not going to be the one that's doing the forensic analysis on, on a case now. That doesn't scale. But I'm certainly involved in kind of jumping in the fire for high profile client cases, for taking initial triage calls. I mean, there's not a day that goes by that I'm not working with clients about a real world incident, or as a reactive capacity, or as more of an educational capacity. So, when I thought about answering this question, about are you still technical, I would say my skill set's really evolved over time. And a lot of the work I do that's in a more technical capacity is actually educational. So speaking to clients, educating them on what it is that we do, briefing boards of directors about how they improve their cybersecurity programs. So it's a bit more comprehensive than, say, doing forensic analysis on a system or using a live response tool to further an investigation. It's kind of putting all of those pieces together. I also think, so certainly the client piece is huge, but the team leadership piece is huge. We're a big company. We're almost 15,000 employees. I mentioned our team's well over 300 people. I have a lot of leaders in other parts of the business that I interact with, that I'm communicating with, making sure we're building relationships so that, one, that flow of information always exists between the work we do and other parts of the business. And then that we're constantly educating them on what it is we do. We bring that mission, like the real, tangible, we're in the fight every day on a client site. This is how it works. Here's how our technologies are working, or maybe here's where we think they can improve. That discussion is so important. And then I think lastly, I do work for DHS. I'm fortunate to be on the Cyber Safety Review Board as one of the civilian members. And so, in that capacity, working with many of the government agencies within the United States, as well as the civilian members, to conduct these investigations, provide recommendations into what we think are going to actually help organizations moving forward to better protect them against these types of threats.
That's really fascinating, especially when you say you have a team that large and remain connected, managing both the translation and the technical knowledge to the business need to leaders who are not too technical as well. Communication skills are something that it's so vital to these type of positions. And that's one of the reasons I always bring up we need a lot more people out there that have a really decent technical base that are willing to move into those management positions, because we need very sharp technical background, solid leaders in this industry, because it's very easy to get in these situations where you're consistently having to educate the leaders as to the importance of cybersecurity and why they need to do it. We're noticing that even here at the ICS Summit, when you're trying to sway the different sectors, the energy sector, it's fascinating when you end up getting those kind of discussions ongoing. So with a team of 300 people, it sounds to me that you have to be constantly on the lookout for talent. So question, that we are always discussing is, like, what is the greatest need for Unit 42 when you are looking at skill sets right now? And again, more, it could be across the board, but if you end up seeing these skill sets today, what skill sets are you finding the most need for, specifically the Unit 42 group that you're running?
I think that's a great question, and I'm going to give you what's maybe a non-standard answer, right? I'm not going to focus on a particular technical skill. Mm-hmm. I think we'll get into some of that later, because that's exceptionally important. But I think boiling it down to something higher level, but also more fundamental. I look for people who have strong intellectual curiosity, who ask a lot of questions, who kind of want to take what appears to be maybe an answer and flip it and say, well, is that really the answer? Is that right? Because that skill set applies probably in any field, but certainly when you're trying to solve a crime and you're dealing with an attacker that's very smart, you need to look at a problem from different angles. And so having people who challenge each other and look at problems from different skill sets because they're super curious is really important. And the second thing is probably the most important, and it might also surprise people. It has nothing to do with being a rock star. It has everything to do with being a team player. Everything in life that we do, you're a member of a team. And that skill set to kind of understand that, like, hey, I might be the best, host-based forensic analyst that's ever lived, but if if I'm not able to get along with other people, that's going to be a challenge, right? The team's not going to solve the problems fast enough. We're not going to deliver great work for our clients. And also that's going to be pretty self-limiting from a career perspective, right? It doesn't matter how technical you are, even our distinguished engineers. I was talking to a group of people earlier this year, and I was explaining the process for getting a distinguished engineer approved. And we had this role at IBM, a fellow, and then we have this role at Palo Alto Networks. And to get the most technical people approved for that next promotion, it requires a panel interview of all of these individuals, both highly technical as well as more executive leaders from throughout the organization, who all have to agree that, yeah, this is someone that we feel really has a technical acumen to be at this level, but also, someone that we want to work with and that we're proud to say is in this role. And so you really never get away from that. And so the more that I think all of us can focus on what does that actually mean and can I embody that on a daily basis, the more successful you're going to be.
Teamwork is, and again, from my personal and also looking forward, and also for people, is that being able to work together. And especially, I try to practice in even where here at SANS, where we have a lot of different, ideas of what the future of cybersecurity is practicing candor in the organization. Being able to speak and give feedback and receive feedback is one of the hardest skills to potentially I've seen individuals have a hard time adjusting to. So when you say that, teamwork is part of that, which is can you work across that, but it's also I've found that being able to receive and also give feedback in a way that is not going to be received well, and also you're going to be able to take the feedback as well. And one of the books out there that influenced me over the years is this book called Creative Inc., which talks about Pixar, in which it really practices, in their movies, which a lot of the movies are just amazing, but the ability on those teams for them to be able to say, I think we can improve it by doing X, Y, and Z, is one of the ways that you're able to get that teamwork thing going in there. The second thing, when you're talking about that skill set is, 100%, and I agree when you're looking for those people, but it's really hard to know, up front, of the personalities and the, leadership that you potentially have to guide those individuals to develop these skill sets, and something that everyone still has to try to do, because it's really easy to read an email and all of a sudden you get that criticism. So, that's something that's coming up a lot, when we're looking at this is, a lot of folks that are coming through CyberStart, and this is one of our high school programs, that we end up having national cyber, competitions that are out there. Do you need, like you had your start in getting a computer science degree, if someone is sitting down in front of you who's 18 years old and you're mentoring them, would you recommend getting a full 4-year degree if they want to get started in cybersecurity? Or, do you guys even look for undergraduate degrees when you're hiring? And, how much is importance of a degree is it to get started in cybersecurity? And again, it's like, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's more of it's an interesting perspective I'm finding and discussing with people. And it's like, are you even focusing in on that? Or are you looking for those skill sets you just mentioned?
Yeah. So I think if we polled like my team, you're going to find that there's at least 50% of the people who don't have a degree in cybersecurity or computer science. So they may have degrees in other types of specialty fields, whether it's like, psychology, international relations, national security, specializing in language skills. So there's a wide variety of ways, I think, to get into it. The great news is, like, when you and I went to school, a cybersecurity degree didn't exist. The field didn't exist. It was computer science, and maybe you had, like, at least for me, I had a networking class, and I think that was as close as what got to kind of practicality, of the work that would turn into like what we were looking for in investigations. That said, today there's a great news in that there are a lot of degree programs, certainly including not only the SANS hands-on curriculum, but also your university. There's so many universities throughout the country now and throughout the world where there are great cybersecurity opportunities. So if someone has an opportunity to pursue that route, then yeah, I'm a huge proponent of that. But is that the end all be all? Absolutely not, right? There's certificate opportunities. Certainly the training curriculum that you all offer is incredible. We send a ton of our consultants through your programs and allocate budget for training every year because it's so important to make sure that we're continuing to maintain those skills. I think, going back to my previous answer though, just about, that kind of continuous curiosity and the drive to not ever stop learning. For me, I went to the military like yourself. I think today, the military and the government, there are more jobs than ever before in those fields where, if you're someone that's excited about pursuing that path, or maybe from a financial perspective, that's more attainable for you, do that, right? There are so many amazing programs there, so many amazing career fields and opportunities. And then you have the opportunity to figure out afterwards, whatever it is that you want to do in the field.
All right, so we're going to pivot here a little bit and start talking about the future of cybersecurity. And it's always interesting when you're sitting down, and this is usually a beer discussion where we have myself or others, a Chad, and they just sit around and saying, what's the future right now? With AI coming out, everyone's discussing it. RSA is AI everywhere. It's talking about it. What is the future of cybersecurity? In your opinion, what's dead? What is needed? And then as a corollary to that, what is hard to get? Why is it so hard to get this right? Is the industry just not good, or the adversaries just that amazing at keeping ahead of it?
Well, so I think, from just a fundamental perspective of like, why is this crime successful? Or why does it even occur in the first place? And ultimately there's money to be made. And now there's more money to be made by criminals throughout the world than there ever has before. And whether you're a traditional cyber criminal or you're perhaps more of a, non-white collar criminal, you can leverage the internet as a platform to conduct crimes. And so when we look at technology and vast advancements, they're often fueling the offense faster than they fuel the defense. And so that's just in any kind of crime in the world, right? That might occur. And so we're dealing with that. And I think that's a challenge, why is it so tough to get right? When I look at like tactically, what I'm concerned about, I'm definitely concerned about near-term elements of AI really improving the social angles. So social engineering, spear phishing attacks, communications from attackers, really being able to fuel and improve their capability to deliver those types of attacks more effectively, right? On the flip side, I think AI will also do a lot to advance our defensive technology and our capabilities to automate even more tasks and to put our really smart people on the most challenging tasks. So in that sense, we're going to make our defenses even better. I have no doubt about that. When we look at kind of long term, though, like what keeps me up at night from a technology perspective, it's really the geopolitical tensions throughout the world, right? We are shifting into a new paradigm. I am concerned about the just level of advancement that China in particular has made relative to the types of attacks we're seeing, the types of data that's being stolen, and then how that's going to impact the world moving forward.
Yeah, overall, it's fascinating with the field. You're mentioning about the social aspect of being able to target individuals. Heather Mahalick's keynote at the RSA just this past week, she was demonstrating, because she and I had a conversation right before then. I said, you should probably take this as an angle, talking about, not just what we're talking about here in the hacking and cybersecurity world, but she was taking it to the common criminal, being able to use this to improve their abilities to do targeting of standard individuals, children, whatnot. So she used ChatGPT to create text messages in the voice of an 11-year-old with emojis to try and get information from her son, and that's what she's trying to demonstrate. But it is almost scary at how accurate, they're able to get the lingo, the emojis, so if you're going back and forth and trying to target someone, you would be able to change your, without having to do a lot of research, change your dialogue almost immediately and be able to respond in the voice that they're potentially familiar with. So all these little things that we've always told people to look out for is like look for misspelled words or incorrect English potentially could be eliminated, and that could be something of the past at this point. So
not to interrupt you, but I saw Heather's talk live. It was fantastic, but it was absolutely terrifying. And I was in a conversation the next day where we were talking about it, and in particular, the applications of communicating with children. Conversely, like I've used it to craft, a dating profile for my 85-year-old father, right? And so the same kind of thing, where, I wasn't sure, like, oh gosh, how do I explain, his what he's looking for, right? Well, I used ChatGPT and gave it some parameters in the prompt. And I think that these misspellings and awkwardly crafted spearfishes are well into a thing of the past at this point.
Yeah, I was able to demonstrate just even as Sans executives that I could craft a website for spearfishing within 30 seconds. Just say create this business with this link that's on it. That'll be redirected. It looks like a real business at that point. You don't have to spend a lot of time. If you wanted to recreate an input username, password, and you're able to do password theft. I mean, it's fascinating the amount for that type of capability. But most people will say, well, aren't they hacking in? I said, no, they usually get someone's username and password, and that gives them that foothold. And that's, from that point forward, it's, game over. So at RSA, we're just there since we're talking about it. What other talks, what other, takeaways did you have from the event? Anything that, struck you as, it's like, wow, that's interesting. That was an interesting discussion. Even, the HallCon, we always call the actual reason why we go is actually to interact with folks. What were some of your major takeaways?
Well, so first I was fortunate to be on a panel with both Leslie Carhart and Katie Nichols, who, obviously have a huge involvement with SANS, and that was just a really cool experience. Two, the things that we were talking about were takeaways from incident response and what's it really like, in the field, and the types of things we recommend to clients and to teams. And Leslie did a fantastic job of giving organizations homework, in terms of how they could more effectively prepare for these types of attacks and what to include in their incident response plans. I think bigger picture, just it seemed so vibrant. It seemed like there were more companies than ever at RSA. It certainly was backed, and it felt like back to pre-pandemic times, but even bigger, right? And so seeing all the new companies that are coming out, filling really particular niche roles, certainly a ton around AI. I don't think that's going away anytime soon, probably not ever in our lifetime. So yeah, I think seeing that, but then also just the reality of more people talking about what's going on in the world, and how cyber has a role to play in kind of these geopolitical tensions. Seeing NSA on Bloomberg talking about how they're hiring 3,000 people, talking about the biggest threats. It's really cool as someone, has been in this field for, well over 20 years now, and kind of the majority of my professional career, to see those types of things now actually being talked about more openly, and shared. I think we're going to drive advancements that way.
Yeah, 100%. And it just, RSA's, really feels like it was back to normal. It was great. A lot of, good connections. My head was spinning half the time, and it was exhausting too. So, closing this out, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to, come on today. And if you're advising someone, just starting out in the field, and I know you touched upon this a little bit earlier, but, if you're going to mentor them and, say beyond the focus on teamwork, the communication side, is what, kind of steps would you say that they should do in practice? If they're saying, hey, Wendy, I look up to you, I'd really like to potentially be you, at some point, what kind of advice would you want to give that individual if you're potentially think about talking to your 22-year-old self that was in that office, you saw the person coming in with a gun under their jacket. What advice would you give that individual today?
I think it's the same advice, regardless of where you're at in your career. In, I guess, just in the specific sense of, like, if you're looking at how do I get to a certain point, it's doing the best job you possibly can in the job that you're in today, right? So it's not like I didn't have some, set out with some like big strategic plan and say, I want to do these things by a certain time. I really tried to do as good of a job as I could in each role. Ask as many questions as possible, which is really tough. Like it's still tough for me sometimes. Certainly, I think women in general, we tend to do less of that, right? You don't want to ask, you don't want to look dumb in front of people. But regardless of who you are, asking as many questions as possible, preparing as much as you can for the day, for the meeting, the big presentation, so that when you come in, like, you really can command the room with credibility. when you do that, you set yourself up for opportunities that you probably don't even know exist at this point, right? When you and I started, this field didn't exist. I think there's going to be so much more explosive growth moving forward that we can't even really predict what kind of opportunities the next generation is going to have. But that makes me really excited.
Yeah, I try to tell a lot of people, ironically, I was just talking to some high schoolers this past week, and they said, this is not even a career field that's on the radar in most high school counselors. That's how, even though we feel, 30,000 people at RSA, more probably. But for us, for someone in high school trying to communicate to them, it's like, you should look at this as a career field. I didn't even know that existed. There's still this, bridge that we have to gap there that says, this is something that you could do. And it attracts so many different types of individuals. And I always tell people, I say, you do not need, the like deep, technology focus. We need a broad swath of, problem solving skills, like you said, communication, teamwork, the curiosity side of things. And I said, if you're willing to figure things out, then, and you like technology, this is, you should take a look at this. And there's a lot of head nodding. And especially when you start talking about what some people make in this field, it is like, you start seeing I definitely should take a look at this a little bit more. And so anyone who's out there in the industry today, it's like, try to reach out to your local high schools and try to influence, the next generation coming into this field, because this is not a problem that's going to be solved anytime soon. Wendy, it's so good seeing you. And instead of meeting online, we keep on running into each other actually at live locations. Cabo, maybe we'll run into each other randomly in Spain next time. Who knows? You're everywhere. It's good to see you, and really thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule today to join us here on Wait Just an Infosec. Thank you.
It's so great to see you, Rob. Thanks for having me on today.
No problem. Next up, we have Ismael Valenzuela, who's going to be talking about combating supply chain attacks. So we're going to go over to that right now. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Ismael Valenzuela. I'm a SANS Senior Instructor, and I'm here live at the SANS booth at RSA 2023. And you hear a little bit of background noise. There's a lot of people around us today. But I'm here today to talk to you about something related to a topic that I've been discussing a lot for the last few years. You probably know, as an author of Security 530, Defensible Security Architecture and Engineering, the Zero Trust class, right? As some people know it. I've been talking a lot about Zero Trust. What does it mean? This philosophy, this strategy. And the reality is that, we're in 2023. Yes, this has become a buzzword. What can we talk about that's specific, that can solve problems, right? That's the SANS motto. How can we solve problems right away by the time you go back to the office, or even the same day? Well, today I want to talk to you about a particular way of implementing Zero Trust. This is product security testing. Yes, and this is becoming more interesting today as, a lot of people realize that supply chain attacks are a real thing. How can we combat supply chain attacks? Well, Zero Trust is part of it. How can we implement this philosophy through product security testing? Well, we could enumerate, for example, what are certain products doing on my endpoint, on my network. During the pandemic, for example, a lot of people started to ask questions like, is it acceptable to install these communication tools on my endpoint, on my corporate endpoint? What is this doing? What are the changes that these are, making in the endpoint? How is it interacting with the network? What is this sending traffic to? Is it sending traffic to countries that I may not trust? This is important, right? Especially if we want to create good, updated enterprise threat models. And with supply chain attacks, this is more important than ever. So just a few tips. You can implement some of these concepts by implementing techniques taken out of the forensics world, like looking at when you install an application, what are the changes made in the registry, in memory? Does it keep any secrets in like plain text, for example, in memory? How is it interacting with the network? Capturing traffic, then looking at, is there anything being sent in an encrypted way? That could be a way of doing what we call basic enumeration. From there, you can learn more of how this particular product behaves. And this product could be, as we said before, an endpoint application, or it could be maybe a mobile application that it's used on a warehouse or aviation, in healthcare, lots of different use cases. From there, you're going to come up with questions that can help you to drive your risk assessment, your threat modeling. And these questions might be answered through maybe deeper enumeration, deeper investigations on how this product is interacting and what does it do. At the end of all of that, you want to create some attack trees. Attack trees are a very popular way and a powerful way of doing threat modeling. And with all of this information, we can answer some of these questions that you may have, that the business may have on, is it safe to implement this product, to put this product on my network, or to use this in my warehouse, or as part of my healthcare environment. So a lot of these questions and techniques and are actually illustrated in a new class that I'm a co-author of, together with Doug McKee. This is Security 568, Combating Supply Chain Attacks with Product Security Testing. So if you want to get more information about that, go to sans.org/sec568, and you'll find more information there.
Hi, everyone. Really appreciate everyone joining the show today. There's so many things that are going on here at the SANS Institute. Like I said, in the next month, we have 3 summits, including the Leadership Summit, the AI Summit, which is in the month, and of course, next summit that's up is the Small Business Summit. Just wanted to highlight both of those. This interview segment that we're trying to do, talking to different industry leaders, and really getting their perspective on what's driving the industry forward. What got them started is one of these things that I really hope will be inspirational, and get individuals talking about how do we bring in the next generation of cybersecurity leaders. The thing about it is, for those of us who started back when none of this had a definitive career path, things are changed now. We have in the U.S. Military, I know specifically, we have cyber career paths for officers enlisted in all the services. And we have specifically the capability to really help reach out and discuss things with next generation students, individuals that are just starting out, and those who are potentially starting to look at reskilling from their current careers into cybersecurity. There's so much opportunity that's out there, and I really hope that everyone takes the time to talk about what they do, why they got started in cybersecurity, and overall, what it means to them to be feeling like you're continually making a difference in protecting your organization, and in many cases, the nation that you're in. You really feel like you're, every part of what you do in cybersecurity, from financial, energy sector, healthcare, you can imagine every single one of those segments in the industries has something to do with what affects individuals on a day-to-day basis. So I thank you for your attending this week's Wait Just an Infosec. My name is Rob Lee. I'm with the SANS Institute. I'm the Director of Curriculum here, and I will be hosting again in the near future and look to having you join me at that point. Thanks again.